All right, thank you. I'm going to speak English, but I brought a lot of images, so I hope you can put the two together and make something out of this talk. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a fantastic venue. I would wish when I went to architecture school it was this nice. So and I'm really sorry. So, I mean, normally if this was if we were at a rock and roll concert and this would be one of the main names, but now I feel more it's like the Suicide Shift with the lights and the fantastic spring weather being outside and everyone just dying for an Aperol in the sun. But let me just try to entertain you a little. I brought primarily projects from Denmark, from Copenhagen, even where we're based. But if I make it, I'm actually zooming out and ending up in Japan. Hopefully I'll get this far. A desire for change through architecture is the title here, and that's what we try to do. This is the situation in a nutshell. Imagine 2050. The global number of square meters is expected to double. This is projection by the UN, still holding up. And in the same period of time, we must become a global fossil-free society. Copenhagen is already in a sticky situation. We have too much climate on the wrong times and too much climatic extremes. I normally have another quote on this one, and it talks about carbon emissions, but it does not go anywhere talking about carbon emissions. It does not really change how we behave. And I stumbled upon this quote by Louis Mumford from the 30s, I think, 50s. He says, the vast material displacements the machine has made in our physical environments are perhaps in the long run less important than its spiritual contributions to our culture. So I think this is actually a profound quote saying how we change stuff physically ultimately is a spiritual experience from us, and how that sort of sense of spirit and physical change impacts our culture. And to me, that is probably more hopeful approach than talking about mitigating and reducing and these other types of more aggressive strategies we are looking at currently. We as architects, and we're a strange bird. I'm not really trained as a landscape architect, but I'm licensed to do landscape works. I'm also an urban planner, and I get very academic architect, a student when I left the academy. We wanted to do everything because we thought, how can we put stuff together if we do not transgress the traditional categories of work and sort of the boundaries of the discipline of architecture. This is a narrative. I hope you all know this small movie, Powers of 10 by Charles and Ray Eames. It's basically this picnic blanket, 1 square meter of a relation between two people, and then zooming out by powers of 10, keep going out until you end out in outer space. And this is what we work with in our office. We work with almost all scale of the urban realm and try to take the prototypes of arbitrary projects, put them together, learn from each sector of work, and put it towards the middle to create more impact. That is our practice. This is the Powers of X, an ambition we founded in 2000, we formulated in 2011 and have been fortunate to work with. In 2011, we founded our office on this project, the Monster Rain event in Copenhagen. 90,000 individual insurance claims, close to 1 billion euros or Swiss currencies. And so it's very, I mean, it was a very bad day for taxis, obviously, infrastructure, very expensive. But also if you look at the transformative power of this human-accelerated natural phenomenon of too much rain, look at the reflection on the water, all these people standing here and gazing upon this phenomenon. Look at the guy who gets to skip work and take his daughter by the hand. So separating good from bad, I think, is a very much kind of like the balance we try to work with and the knife edge that we walk on. If you look at cities traditionally, the classicist city was actually doing pretty well. This is City Hall. You have Tivoli to the right and City Hall to the left. Look at the two guys standing. I'm going to try this thing just because it's so cool. Look at these two guys standing in the middle of the street, greeting each other. Here's a sign saying bicycle path. Obviously, this is like the epitome of a classicist livable city. And the exact same spot 100 years later is a complete decimation of all the livable parameters, but also the mobile parameters of this city, this particular place in Copenhagen. And it's kind of like the guy in the car battling the guy with the bike, now being pedestrianized, just kill me, no, please kill me first. So obviously not a win-win situation anymore between city and nature and space and sort of the classicist traits of a good city. The socio-economic business case is horrible. We have all the arguments in the world for changing the city. If only facts were enough to change the world, we would be in a better place, as we often joke at the office. Currently, the situation is that we're investing 14 times as much public money into motorized infrastructure as we are into soft mobility. It's completely mindlessly stupid. But that's my personal, but also factual notion on this. Cities are sticky. Cities are these kind of like metabolistic, strange, artificial sort of phenomenons of relations. And this is just, when Third Nature tried to look at all the data and put it together graphically, it creates this kind of like a Rorschach test of what is actually Copenhagen. It's not just infrastructure, it's not just plots to build on, it's not just the odd park, it's everything. Everything that sort of touches us, touch our life and ability to live. And how do we look into this equation of strange relations? How do we actually, as planners, as architects, as landscape architects, try to come up with something that performs better than this kind of like mishmash of strange, arbitrary relations? It's so easy to find comfort in what we normally are doing and long-term investments, but we try to somehow, sometimes just, how about just doing a little test? This was a little test we did in the medieval city of Copenhagen, the center of Copenhagen. We said, well, how about, just for a summer, we take out a couple of cars, just a couple of parking spaces. I mean, mind you, this city was built 200, 300 years ago. No cars at that time. It's actually okay to try it out. So we did, I don't know if you know Lars von Trier, the Danish instructor, he did this film called Dogville, which is kind of like a theatrical set. You know, the sort of the Beatles cover, obviously. So we did that. So we took out a couple of kilometers of Copenhagen and said, well, how about we just painted something on it to simulate pedestrianization or public space, and then we used some of the parking spots for trees. A very simple project. I was just one summer, a couple of years ago, measuring it. We had like 20 centigrades of temperature difference from an unshaded dark asphalt surface towards the more white one, which was in shade. So the sort of environmental microclimatic comfort and impact of this simple thing was really, really profound. And politically, now they have said, well, we're actually going to take away 70% of the parking spaces in this medieval core and try to use it for something else. Something that was completely unimaginable before discussing this particular location in Copenhagen. So I think just sometimes being simple, being a little stupid, but also just let's just try to see what happens actually is a way to go. Just there is hope on the other side of the parking mafia and the car ownership mafia and the bike mafia and the pedestrianization mafia and the tree hugger mafia. We can all somehow get together and do something nicer that works better for everyone. But the more permanent installations are also critical to look at. We spent 7 years on this project and realizing all the stuff that goes on underground is just as important as what we look at on the surface. We call it a plug and play project because the plugging does not really relate to the way that we get to play in the city. We were just out of the first project we did, the climate district, we actually realized that 20% of the streets of Copenhagen does not have any function. if you put stuff together in a more pragmatic way, we actually have 20% of the entire streetscape of the public spaces and the public streets of Copenhagen does not have any dedicated function. I mean, we can kick out some car owners, but it's a little uphill still. But actually, we have 20% we can work with. And this is where you put your trees, your innovative climate solutions, and you basically roll them out. This is the concept. The problem fundamentally with flooding in cities is that paving does not do anything with water other than push it away, so it doesn't get into the buildings. But once the sewer system is exhausted, and we have sewers all the way back to the cholera epidemic, still in function in Copenhagen, but here, 100 and some years later, they are maxed out in capacity. So now we see water coming on the surface. So this surface in itself can actually help to provide an additional water management system. And people tell us how much water they need to manage, and we tell them how many trees they need. So we use our product to accelerate the greenification or naturalization of the streets to promote more and better streets, more green and more sort of social and high-capacity streets. This is the average streets of Copenhagen. This is where we actually spend 80% of our daily free time, and it's basically a parking lot. We'd like to think that I'd like to live centrally in Copenhagen, next to the Royal Theatre and these kind of things, but I never go. I don't go to the Royal Park, I don't go to the Royal Theatre. This is actually the space I get to spend most of my hours, 3 hours, with my kids. Parking lots. We call it the philosophy of the edge zone, and the edge zone is actually a formulated target of design when we do cities in Copenhagen. We spent 5 years on designing this concept and this product. It took 5 hours to put in these trees. And literally 5 minutes after we cut the ribbon of this product, people were just responding so positively to it. We had one person, I can see I'm never going to make all my slides because I'm just too anecdotal today, but that's okay. One person lives on the first floor, and suddenly her view was taken away by the big trees. And so, oh fuck, she's going to be pissed because no moves. But she was actually a night nurse, so she came home this afternoon and just looking at it, and she was just so happy. Normally she would have to go to bed because she had a job next day or next night, but she was just standing for hours on a balcony being super happy that her no place of an environment suddenly had become some place, and actually responding really well to it. The cafe was run at that time by students, and they increased their revenue by 30% just the first year. We expanded the sidewalk a little, and suddenly you can sit there with your kids and not sort of be afraid they would run in front of a big Audi or another expensive German car. And people would actually start to bike on the sidewalk because it sort of made sense, even if it's illegal. So just by this small change, this very pragmatic solution, people were responding really positively. It's a product that you just put in. Here you have a standardized Copenhagen paver, 30 years, a climate tile, same format, does something with water. We have now been in the ground with this product for 5 years, and it works completely like we expected it to. I would like to see a larger business on it. We're still on a prototype stage, but the city of Copenhagen said, well, if you put this paver in at the same window of a refurbishment where we are just changing the broken tiles, the water, the climate active part of this project or product is actually 1/10 of the price that we pay currently for managing water in the city. So I would be happy just make it at the same price because our product is easier to put in, and it's actually a place you can put water in that exists. because all the other places are hypothetical, insanely expensive places that are not currently available in the denser cities. So that's actually what we are looking at. If you work with simultaneous hybrid products like this, you can actually have a vast socioeconomic impact, and also you can actually make something useful over time. This is when we are retrofitting, looking at a little more on the sort of the permanent larger plans of Copenhagen. This is another district we've been working with for some years. It's a kilometer-long project. And this is much more extravagant in the sense of livability. So the edge zone design here is sort of finding the balance between a sort of a hyper-public biking and sort of promenading corridor throughout the heart of this project. And then you have privatized row house ownership on the ground floor. So by using landscape and sort of meandering the different levels and densities of plantation, we create something that sort of plays nice, so you can actually live here, but you can also have this super public situation. And magically, we disappeared the cars in this project, and we do that by, we have a basement underneath everything. It's more than 1 kilometer basement for just cars, so quite extravagant. But you get to get a sense of actually living in a car-free city. A lot of planning, a lot of regulations has to be massaged together. But what we have tried to do is to make this sort of this corridor, a hybrid corridor between plantations, seasons, public use, destinations, sports activities, all kinds of sort of performative parameters are put together into this corridor. All kinds of specific details and regulations on how the lowest 7 meters of this entire environment are put together into this type of design. Where you have a bicycle lane in the middle, and the bicycle mafia of Copenhagen was not happy with this bicycle path. It's too meandering. It needs to go faster. It needs to be more straight. And I'm just like, well, you can just piss off to the next plot and go fast on your bike, because this is about slowing down and becoming sort of a more sort of agreeable relationship with each other. And everything on the landscape, the design here is super meandering. This is about creating a more performative sort of facilitating landscape that responds well to us and our sort of need to finding a nice place to sit in the sun, or in the winter sit in the shade. It's a much more humane, performative type of approach of a landscape. And this is the first bit of it. And this is September afternoon. Actually have sun. Everything is optimized with sun parametrics, so we know where people can stay in the afternoon once they're free from work, and you can actually have something in this distant urban area where you can actually stay and enjoy your life. And the client really mismanages the landscape, so it's working really well. It just grows. This is after 2 years. From nothing to something that accumulates growth value over time. Is really, really a living, vibrant environment, and the density of it is probably the double density of what is normally considered to be the scale of Copenhagen. Looking at water and types of pressure that we have on the sort of more iconic destinations of Copenhagen, this park is a cultural heritage park in Copenhagen. It's on Vesterbro, which is the district that is one of the densest, classicist neighborhoods of Copenhagen. The park has 1 million annual visitors before we transformed it, and they wanted to use it as a main recipient for this entire large area of all the water that lands there in extreme situation has to somehow go into that park. So that was the design task we were given. It's cultural heritage. We have 1 million annual visitors. They all love the park, so don't change the thing. And by the way, fit in a massive amount of water. So that was the task we were given. And these types of sticky situations that any historical city on this planet will face before, sooner or later, and you might as well just get going and see what's actually the capacity of your historical environment. This park has some pavilions in the end, and a stage here done by Arne Jacobsen. You might know Arne Jacobsen is one of the great Danish functionalists. So it's pretty daunting being, at the time, a younger architect. I wouldn't say I was young, but I was younger. So we came up with a strategy and said, well, what if we could imagine a flooding of the entire park? So we came up with the idea of building a wall. So we point-founded a wall. So we didn't even touch the tree. We just put it in on the perimeter of the park, trying to say in the competition, well, maybe if we can imagine this entire park being flooded, it can actually take a lot of water. So this is a 100-year event, which doesn't really make sense since we have 1,000-year events every 3 years in Copenhagen. But so 35,000 meters of controlled flooding of a historical park. People will bath in it. I can only advise against it. But people respond really well to these types of situations. They just see it as something playful, but it is actually kind of catastrophic. We have capacity of 23,000 cubic meters in the historical park, which, to my knowledge, is second to none. We preserved so much of the original plantation and the iconic elements. We strengthened the neoclassicist element of the park. And we built walls to preserve Arne Jacobsen's gems of architecture. This is a flower stall, like a small shed done by Arne Jacobsen to an insanely high price per square meter. And it does not get wet. And we did this, the sports facility, so this is done almost like a classicist theater. We have 2 million liters of capacity of the cleanest fraction of rainwater that's been harvested in the park. And just the first year, we saved 6 million liters of groundwater just by using rain to irrigation in Copenhagen. The whole design ethos of this project is somehow through sort of a twisted, more contemporary take on neoclassicism, that architecture somehow makes carbon emission, climate change tangible on a daily basis. It's not a lifted finger, but it's also not a yes we can. It's more like involving climate as a sort of as a daily revolving discussion with all the users of the park and the million of annual visits in the park. How am I doing on time? Too slow. I'm going to skip this project just to get to the big nasty one. This one. Yeah, I promised Annette I'll show her so she could grill me afterwards. This project is currently Denmark's largest project, both in terms of size and in terms of complexity and in terms of revenue for a lot of stakeholders. This photo here is how it used to look before we started reclaiming some of this land. This area houses some of the most expensive real estate today. And out here, I think, is it is actually 100 years ago, looking at sort of the foundation of the seabed to start to reclaim this land. And that's what we are doing now. This project is kind of like a Kindereier. It's like a Columbus egg, they call it. It's about flooding protection. It's about surplus soil in the capital region. It's about urban development, money, densification of Copenhagen, and it's about infrastructure. This is where the island is to be placed. White areas are historical shorelines. Darker ones are newer ones and more recent ones. And this is the place we're looking at. The problem with Copenhagen is that we are very much exposed to the sea. And once we have sea rise and extreme wind, we see a risk of Copenhagen being flooded by sea. The historical core of Copenhagen, and let's see if we can, oh sorry, too many buttons, 3 is too many. This is where we have the parliament today. So just to say that we are very much in a sticky situation. So this is the design currently of the park, the flooding park, the one to the outside, the green stretch. and everything else is currently just a soil depot, but will eventually be 2.7 million square meters of new real estate of central Copenhagen. And I guess I just looked it up. We're expecting 77.8 million tons of soil to be placed in this island. And you might ask, isn't it extravagant building an island of this size? Getting all that soil, isn't that crazy? But it's the other way around. This is the amount of soil we need to replace because of the urban development of the capital region. So rather than pushing the soil 50 kilometers outside of Copenhagen, we actually just push it in the center of Copenhagen with a massive climate mitigative impact on emissions. The flooding park is what we've designed currently, the meandering path or line towards the sea on the east. Everything is based on sort of the movement of water and sedimentation and the seabed topography. So everything is kind of natural response or artificial response to a natural phenomenon. We work with this design on this edge. We call it, normally you would just, when you have a harbor, its edges like this. This is what we call a reflective edge. And if you have more flooding and more damaging wave impact, you just elevate it. But the problem with that strategy is that you have to come up maybe even +4, +5 meters in all the historical quays of Copenhagen. We have 42 kilometers of quays just in Copenhagen. What we devised here is what we call a nature-based approach. It's actually an absorbing type of coastline or edge towards the sea. So when the big storm surge flooding come and the waves come, they are actually being absorbed and sort of mitigated by a more meandering terrain. And this actually provides for a lower high point of the design. So working, even if it's constructed, it's actually learning from nature. And how would nature do this in a way that we can use recreatively and be more agreeable with the sort of situation that we are having and the relation towards the sea, and how can we use this project to reformulate that? All the soil that we have is very low on nutrient. It's -1. So no nutrients in it. So there's been a lot of effort here of formalizing strategies for accelerating the biological processes to sustain more sustainable landscapes on this coastal shore. We publicized this image a few years ago, and people were just freaking out. I almost got a cut off horse's head in my bed that morning because people were just, particularly the detail with the cattle or the big grazing creatures on the side, people were just freaking out. This is not Copenhagen. It's greenwashing. Where are all the big high-rises? Where are all the condos? Where are all the rich people? And these cattle, what are they doing in this image? The cattle are therefore accelerating sort of the build-up of nutrients in the soil. They're actually enhancers and accelerators of natural processes. No condos. This will be a public park indefinitely. No building in this zone. And this is how it will look some 30 years from now towards the Sea of Copenhagen, outside of Copenhagen. And this is what is supposed to happen every third year or something in the future. Hundreds and maybe even 1,000-year events bashing against the shoreline of Copenhagen. This is a photo from last year. It's not a render. They place the stones of the perimeter with a 2-centimeter precision to the stuff we've been doing in the attic of Third Nature, which is, I would say it was a thought-provoking image, seeing this drone photo of the stuff you've been designing. But also, if you look at all the crap that is behind it, this is how Copenhagen and most cities have been actually meeting the city, meeting the sea, and how the city relates to the sea in a very sort of hostile and inhuman way. This is at least something different that we try to achieve here. What we see here is phase one of the project. And phase one is, I think, 10% of the entire island's perimeter. Phase two has now started, and you might ask, how big is phase two? Phase two is the rest. Phase two is 90%. They don't really waste any time in this office for Copenhagen when they do stuff like this. They are really struggling with actually finding place for soil in the capital region. So it's actually a practical thing. It is being built up and it's being pushed and it's coming. So 2 years from now, you will see that the entire perimeter of kilometers and kilometers of new Copenhagen shoreline be placed in Copenhagen. I think I'll just stop here. Okay, thank you.